Before we can jump in and really start creating our generator, we firstly need to have a basic top-level idea of how this is actually going to be created. In most procedural generators, you will have an underlying base mesh, or perhaps carve the basic geometry onto which more complex geometry is then generated. In our case, I want to start with a basic plane such as this, on which the edges will form our roads. The faces will form the city blocks, and onto which we can create our procedural buildings. I also want to take a moment just to review the assets that we're going to be using throughout the course. In this blend file, I have our assets, and this is included in our source files. In our main collection, we have BCT assets. We drop this down. We have a few sub-collections. Firstly, our city streets assets that we will be using in Chapter 4 to create our streets instances. And then our window door assets and hatchback for our buildings, which we will be utilizing in Chapter 5. This course builds upon a technique I originally developed for a fictional tutorial series called Urban Blocks Vol. It follows similar logic in how we process building parts as reusable stylized geometry that works well with instancing workflows. To that end, we're going to be reusing a few of the assets from that approach. If we have a look at these assets, I'm just going to enable these collection bins we have here. First of all, at bench, we have a lamp post. We have some tree, and we have traffic lights. These are taken directly from that collection, with a few additions or amendments to the materials to either simplify them or to make them work better with our process for passing attributes through to the shader editor. Inside the BCT assets collection, we have several sub-collections. First, there is the city streets assets collection. We are going to use this later in Chapter 4 to create our street instances. Then we have a few other assets like windows, doors, and HVAC that will be used for our buildings in Chapter 5. As I mentioned, this course builds on top of the work done in the famous Neo-Modular City series created by an artist named Alex. To that end, we're going to be reusing a few assets from that project. If we take a look at these assets, I'm just going to enable these collection bins. We have here, you'll see a bench, a lamp post, a tree, and some traffic lights. These came directly from that earlier project and were modified slightly, mostly tweaking the materials to make them simpler or more compatible with our process of passing attributes into the shader editor. If we view each of these assets, each of them is 3 meters by 3 meters. That is true for every single window within our window sets, both for residential and commercial buildings, as well as for all door assets. The exact dimensions you choose for your assets aren't strictly important. What really matters is that they are consistent across every building asset. That way, the procedural system will work correctly regardless of your art style or detail level. Now, for each of our window sets, both residential and commercial, We also have door assets that are designed with a similar look and style to match the window sets they belong to. These doors are also set to the same 3-meter dimensions when combined into complete structures. Lastly, there's the HVAC collection. It contains additional elements meant to be placed on the rooftops of our buildings. These are once again from the Cubis City source files and include a range of components that we can randomly distribute on the building tops. They help bring some extra detail and variety to the rooftops and give the whole setup a more complete appearance. Aside from the 3D asset models, the course also includes a number of node groups. These are included in the source files and can be appended into your Blender project. You'll see them referred to as utility nodes throughout the course. These provide specific reusable functions like curve operations, geometry transformations, and helper systems for organizing your node networks more efficiently. Most of the utility nodes we'll actually be building ourselves as we go through the lessons. There's only one that we won't be creating from scratch. Let's finally dive into geometry nodes and start building the generator.